Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Shawn Feurer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride. Hello, and welcome back to Inner Blueprint, the podcast all about mindset. Learning how to think better thoughts, to create better feelings, so we can all enjoy better results. I'm your co-host, Shawn Feurer, here with the beautiful and amazing
Kaitlin Feurer.
And today I'm excited. We're going to get right into it. Today's guest, he's not only an inspiring leader, he's been a friend of ours, someone we've had the honor of working alongside for years. Coming up on almost a decade of growth and watching this amazing journey, him and his incredible wife. This guest was born into a construction family in Illinois. His first love was actually baseball, which he excelled at and was actually drafted by the Houston Astros before life had other plans. And I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit of this today. That twist led him into the family business, where he's found a lot of passion for business ownership, for sales, for growth. Since him joining the organization, the company's gone from 3 million to over 11 million and on their way to so much growth, so much excitement.
Limitless.
All along, he's a devoted husband, father, and a force for growth. So let's welcome to Inner Blueprint our friend, Kyle Erdmann. What's up, man?
How are you doing today?
Doing so good. And I was going to say Kyle with Erdmann Exteriors, but that was the company when I met you about 8 years ago. Tell us a little bit. What is the company today, or companies?
So we still have Erdmann Exterior Designs, and that's still a force in the industry. 2 years ago, we spun off Erdmann Outdoor Living to be our custom backyards business. And then less than a month ago, we started Structure North Shore because we always thought one construction company wasn't difficult enough. So let's do two more.
I love
That's it.
I love it. That's the growth. Oh, where do you want to start the conversation? I mean, I was thinking back, you and I met years ago at CCN. I was working as a business coach. You had joined as a new member. I left CCN. You actually ended up leaving the organization for a little while. And I remember out of the blue, you called me and we had a conversation. I think we were talking about behavior and sales process. Am I remembering that right?
Nope, you're remembering correctly. And in between when we were both on our hiatus, trying to figure out what we were going to do next, we kept in touch and we always talked about what the next thing was. And then you dropped down this mindset thing to me, and it had me intrigued.
Yeah. Well, I'll never forget. And I actually you coined a phrase for me because we were talking sales, business process type stuff. And in the middle of that conversation, you literally stopped me. You're like, Shawn, what is going on? And I remember I was like, what do you mean, Kyle? And you said, dude, you've always been like optimistic and somewhat positive, but you've become painfully positive. And I remember I thanked you. I said, oh my God, man, thank you for noticing. Let me tell you what I've been doing. And that's, when I first started sharing with you the journey of mindset I've been on and how I'd figured out that it really doesn't matter what we're doing on the outside if we're not taking a dive on the inside.
Well, what's so interesting too is I actually remember that day it was like when we were first starting to get together, and he was like, man, I just had this great call, and he told me all about this. Painfully positive has been a term that we've coined in our business. It's actually one of our core values. So Kyle, thank you for providing one of our core values. It's pretty amazing.
Yes, and on days I'm in my head and maybe being a little negative, I literally think of you and like, dude, I got to show up painfully positive. I can't be negative today.
It's so funny. 4.5 years ago, I told you that, and it still sticks. And I still hear you say it, and I still remember the conversation when it happened.
I know. I love it. That's a beautiful thing about our journey, I think, is just, and for me, watching you, because I would say you've become painfully positive, and you've done, where do you want to start? I mean, I know with your self-image, and if you want to talk a little bit about, I mean, you are a professional baseball player. I mean, you had the mindset, you had the physical body until the body said no, and then you had to make a transition. And
well, I want to sidebar that because, I met you guys, much later after Shawn did, but I want to know, like, when you saw them walk into a CCN conference, you saw Kyle, who's built like a professional baseball player, and Becca, who's this beautiful blonde, and you're like, what the hell? Were you thinking, what the hell are they doing here? They do not look like they should be running a construction company. Because
yes.
I think that.
Yes. Well, and I think that's why I love seeing you go into outdoors, into like a sexier space.
Definitely.
That matches you guys as a power couple.
Yeah, I mean, outdoors was a natural progression for us as a business, but no, we can definitely dive into the self-image thing because I think that the story of Kyle Erdmann definitely begins with baseball and with how I was raised. So,
I hope we get to
um,
talk about cooking too, because you are one of the best cooks I've ever met. So
Well,
it was nowhere in your bio, but I hope we could have a chance to chat about that.
just go find Cooking with
we can
Kyle.
always no, no, no. It's eating with the Erdmans now. We had to rebrand.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
remember I was part of that. I was like,
That's
this
right.
should be like eating with Becca because she's the one that posts all the stuff, but I like eating with the Erdmans. It's amazing.
Yeah, so you want to
So,
go back to, yeah, go back to your high school years or wherever you want to go. Let's talk about where did your self-image start and where did it basically get in your way?
so it's funny. I was with somebody yesterday who I knew from much earlier in life. I've known this guy since first grade, and he was asking me some stuff about life and how life progressed for me, and I realized that a lot of my self-image and some of the self-image issues I had in the past started when I was quite a bit younger. Because he ended up asking me when I got into football. Now, I know side notes. I know I was baseball, but baseball has been a part of my life since I was like 2 or 3 years old. I picked up a baseball bat as one of the first things I could do when I learned how to walk. Um, but he asked me when I started in football because we were talking about our kids and and the sports our kids play. And my oldest is really big into soccer right now. And he asked me if I ever played soccer, and I said, yeah, I played travel and club soccer all the way up until sixth grade. And he asked me why I stopped playing soccer if I was good. And I said, it's funny you ask because I played soccer all the way up until my friends told me I was a pussy for playing soccer. And that was when my self-image issues all started.
Wow.
Because, growing up, I always just felt like no matter what I did, there are two things that were true. I never really fit in with the lane I was going down. And no matter what I did, it never seemed like it was good enough. So, you play travel baseball, but you get ridiculed because your dad's one of the coaches. You play football, but you get ridiculed because you aren't as good as the guys that played their whole life. Granted, I played both ways, played all the way up to high school until I got hurt. Um, so yeah, that's a lot where my self-image issue started. Was pretty young, and they just carried with me for a pretty long time. I definitely spent a lot of my younger years and high school years, I would say, with a pretty big chip on my shoulder,
Mm,
and I would say most of my motivation in life came from trying to prove people wrong. Which now, and through work with you, I've realized that was motivation coming from the wrong place. I was coming from a place of negativity instead of coming from a place of where I want to be.
yeah.
Um, so I've been able to reprogram a lot of that stuff. But yeah, that definitely stuck with me for a long time. It was always the thought that no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. And actually, one of my affirmations now is my best is more than enough.
I love that. I love that.
I write that down every morning.
I love that.
Well, it's
So,
funny, Kyle.
Well,
You and I've never talked about that, but I actually played soccer too, and I had similar. My football and basketball and baseball buddies ridiculed me for it, and I shifted sports there, and even football. I started playing later and was pretty good at it, but I hadn't been playing. So it's just interesting. We talk about the paradigms that get programmed into us, and especially as men, sports is a great thing, but it also can hold us back. And just one other thing, just for listeners, we just dropped an episode on paradigms, right, and shifting them. And Kyle just talked about how he had this paradigm to prove everybody wrong. And like most paradigms, that served Kyle well to a point, because as he was proving people wrong, he was building and got to a certain level in life, in relationships. But then in the last few years is when he's changed it and realized it only served him as motivation, but it came from a negative space. And now shifting it and the image to a positive space, oh my God. To see what you and Beck have created in the last couple of years is just amazing. So just wanted to point that out.
well,
Yeah, well, Kyle
and,
also,
and it's funny I'm sorry, Caitlin.
no, I was
I
going to
was
say,
just gonna say it's fun just on what you said. It's funny you say that it comes from the wrong place because the motivation to prove people wrong was great until I got to the point where I felt like I had nobody left to prove wrong because everybody was on my side. So what motivates you still if there's nothing to push you?
well, and that's what
So
I
that's
was
when you had
literally,
to really reprogram.
yeah, I was just going to hit on that. One of your main motivators, Kyle, is individualistic. It's that level of competition drive to be the best, right? I share this with you. So if you want to motivate me, tell me I can't do something just so I can prove you wrong. Even if I didn't want to do it, you've told me I can't. So I'm going to have to show you how I can at least 25 ways. And so it's a delicate balance of, is this healthy or is this like detrimental to my growth right now, the way I'm showing up in this, the way I'm letting this motivate you or motivate me? Because I was very much the same way. I still have those tendencies of like, oh, no, I just want to do it to prove you wrong. But it does hold us back in some way, right? Like we have to realize, and I have the same affirmation as you. One of mine is I am more than enough, because I was always told, it was
Too much.
It was too much. And so now it's like, oh, I'm more than enough. And it's crazy just that quick little, paradigm shift or mindset shift can do to you to really stop holding you back at that level of I have to prove these people wrong to I'm just going to show myself what I can do.
Well, I think, and Kyle, just observing you, right? You went from proving everybody else wrong to just proving yourself right. And that's what I've seen is like now the limiters are off because, again, you're always going to challenge yourself, but you're doing it for you. You're doing it for your kiddos. You're doing it for Becca. You're doing it for, in my mind, the right reasons. And ultimately, it's for you. So what did that shift look like? I mean, you got injured, right? You got drafted by the Astros. Talk about a little bit of that, because that's to put that much work and effort into a career, to be good at it, to be ready to go. I mean, what an emotional and mental setback to have, a reoccurring injury stop you.
So, I got drafted in June of 2007. And then about a month later, I got my contract in the mail. So I still have that copy of the contract.
Wow.
And it's so funny. The most ironic thing about it was I lived my entire life for the one day of getting drafted, and they frickin' spelled my last name wrong. And I'll never forget that. My draft letter and everything that's still hung on my wall has my last name spelled wrong.
Well, if that was a sign from the universe, actually, maybe. Wow.
So yeah, it was 4th of July week, and I was pitching in a tournament, and the guy on the opposing team had just been drafted by the White Sox. So my high individualistic said, let's give it all we got. Now, I was supposed to just be throwing for work in the summer, not throwing for competition, trying to save myself for what really mattered. But my competitiveness got the hold of me. And my team really played into my competitiveness. And those who know baseball will know that 152 pitches later, I felt a little pop in my arm. And that was the beginning of the end of my baseball career, because at that point, the Astros pulled the contract. They picked a school for me, told me to go back to school. I got surgery on my elbow. I spent the next year and a half recovering. And then my junior year of college, my first inning back from surgery, I actually just threw a pitch and I tore a ligament in my elbow in 3 spots and broke a bone. And that was what they considered a total elbow blowout at that point. So that was the last day, and that was the day that I figured out I was going to have to try to really figure out what I wanted out of life, because baseball probably wasn't in the cards anymore.
Wow. And you had used like the best surgery. I mean, you did everything possible to take care of that injury, to really ensure that you had a chance to keep playing. And
yeah, my surgery was done by the guy who did the White Sox arm surgeries, and he did the Chicago Bulls surgeries as well. He was the top orthoped in the area. But like I said, sometimes people just have other plans for you.
Yeah. Well, this is a moment. Did this happen to you, or did this happen for you, Kyle?
This particular thing, I always say, happened for me, because had this not happened, my life would have gone down a total nother path, and I would have never met my wife.
And that would have been sad for you and her. Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
and it's funny. So when I was trying to figure out what I want to do next in life, growing up, I didn't really have much for mentors. I really looked up to baseball players. I grew up in the '90s, so Ken Griffey Jr., Frank Thomas, all the big baseball players from back then. So when I was in college, though, is when I started watching Food Network. So this is where Eating with the Erdmanns comes in, Kaitlin. So I did what one of the only people I looked up to did, and I followed in Bobby Flay's footsteps. And I I enrolled in the restaurant management program and started taking cooking classes.
So cool.
And I was hell-bent on becoming a chef and restaurant owner.
Well, and that's the thing is
So
I know that you've got your own path now, but you've cooked for us, and I'm like, this is it's so funny because you make it look so easy, and it all tastes so good. The flavors always work so well, and it's crazy. Like when we came to your house, you literally just gotten home from work and you homemade a gnocchi, and I was like, what? And this is so amazing. Like this is something that I would have to like spend all day mentally prepping myself to do before I could do it, and it was just so easy and it was so good, and I'm like. And it's so funny because you are who I talk to when I need a restaurant recommendation or a wine recommendation or something like that, right? Like, what does Kyle think? What does Kyle think? And even your wife, this is the best part. Becca came and spent time with us, and she's like, I don't even know what I want. And sent a picture of the menu and was like, Kyle just tells me what to eat and drink.
So what happened there? Why didn't you pursue that? I mean, obviously you're still good at it and it's a passion of yours, but where did the change happen there?
so it's funny. I ended up graduating with honors from the restaurant management program. It was the first time in my life I'd ever gotten good grades. Um, and it's just because I felt so much connection to everything I was doing. It was just easy. Um, so I went and I was the assistant general manager of a restaurant in the college town in Champaign, Illinois. And then that restaurant ended up closing, and I ended up taking a job as a bar manager for a friend. And this was the friend that actually gave me what I would say is the best advice I had gotten up to that point in my life. Um, so I was a bar manager of a Mexican restaurant. His name is Sammy Fuentes. And me and Sammy were sitting there after the bar closed, and we were counting money. And that day, his son had just told him he did not want to take over his family's business. And so he was in all sorts of feelings. And he looked at me and he said, Kyle, you are made for a lot more than what I can give you here. Um, I think you would be better served if you went back and stopped looking at it as working for your family business and start looking at it as creating a new version of your family's business.
Ooh.
So he said, I would love to have you here. I love spending time with you, but for your own sake, you're not welcome back here anymore.
Wow. Wow.
I ended up moving home the next week.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it was literally life-changing advice. It was also one of the first times in my life that somebody had ever told me they believed that I was better than what I was doing.
Mm.
So, that's a story that I don't know if I've ever told anybody.
I love it. Thank you for sharing it here.
I hold a very, very high regard for Sammy and everything that he did for me. So, yeah.
That's cool. We talk a lot about belief, even and he's now one of your mentors too, Brian Gottlieb, his book, Beyond the Hammer, The Transference of Belief. And for so many individuals, we grew up even with loving parents that don't believe in us. And it takes sometimes just one person seeing that version of you that you know is there, but you're not seeing. How cool. How cool. And so you take that, you go home and Dad, I'm coming to work. Is that how it went?
So at that point, Dad had already been trying to get me to come home. So yeah, I just told him I'm coming home, and I'm going to spend one more weekend down here just to say bye to my friends. And packed up, moved home on a Sunday, started work on Monday, and I actually took a job with my dad doing marketing, because that's what I originally went to school for. And a couple weeks into working for my dad, the only sales rep he had just quit.
Oh, wow.
So,
So who are you marketing
true to
for?
form. That's right. So true to form for my dad, instead of, there being some kind of grace period or training period, he just said, go for it. And I ended up going out that week, and I had 5 appointments, and I sold 3 of the jobs.
Wow.
Wow.
I had almost no knowledge of anything. Mind you, when I worked for my dad growing up, I framed and I did interior trim. So siding was completely foreign to me. And I went out and sold jobs. And that's when I realized, like, I have a knack for sales.
Yes.
And that's probably the route I should go down.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I want to weave Becca in a little bit here. When did you meet Becca? What part of your story? When was it that she came into your life?
We're not even there yet.
Not even there.
Oh,
Okay.
I love
All right.
this.
Not even there yet.
Okay.
No. So,
Well, and again, just thinking
I-
about things happening for you, right? Career ends, bouncing around, and one of the coolest moments of your life when you meet her is still ahead of us. So I love this.
yeah, I mean, my first year in sales, I sold $1 million. That was, back in 2013. I
Wow.
thought it was awesome.
Well,
I
that
thought
is
being $1 million
awesome.
salesman was like the pinnacle.
Well, in 2013 especially, you're like, holy shit.
It's funny because, not to get too far ahead, but I carried that $1 million sales mentality way too long that was good. But then obviously I ended up meeting somebody who really pushed my limits and told me that what I was doing, there was still a whole lot more. In fact, just last week, as I'm sitting there getting ready for the ribbon cutting of our new showroom, I have presidents of 2 companies in town coming to see us, and I have all these people here. She still sends me a text that just says, "Get better soon. I know you're not sick. I just think you can be better."
Oh my gosh.
And I love that because actually Megan Beatty said that to her and sent it to me. And I was like, this is something I can hear Becca saying. And I was like, this is definitely something Becca was saying. So I love that she sent it to you.
She said that Megan sent it to her, and immediately she said she knew she needed to send it to me.
I love it.
That's amazing.
So yeah, a year after I worked for my dad, I was at the gym one day in March, and I ran into Becca, and that was the first time that we had talked since my freshman year in college. Because I actually originally met her shortly after I got drafted. It was actually the night I got drafted, and I was at a party that she was at, and I went up to her and I gave her the best pickup line ever, and I just said, "Hey, so did you hear I got drafted today?"
Oh my God, Kyle.
Which was met by the most unimpressed look ever.
Oh,
Of all people to try to pick up with that line, that wasn't it. You learned though. This is great.
I did learn. So we started dating in May of 2014. And the first day we were officially dating, I remember we were downtown Chicago, having a Sunday fun day, and my dad came and picked us up from the train station, and Becca told my dad that we were in love and going to get married. And and here we are.
I love it.
That is one thing I'll say about Becca. That woman gets what she wants. She decides what she wants really quick, and she makes it happen. Like, it is so impressive. I love that about Becca, and I think that you two balance each other out so well because you both are very decisive. You're both very high D's, where you're more aggressive. It can seem that way. I'm not one to talk. I'm a 100D, but you guys are decisive. You know what you want. You're able to get it. You know what it takes, and you'll do it, which is so awesome because that really is what makes you guys such a power couple. And then the way that you balance each other out is in your other areas is so impressive. But I love that about you too, and I love that. I know we're not there yet, but when we get into the business of you guys going together, like, you guys are such a great example of what happens when you really lean into each other to build what needs to be built. Like, it is so impressive to me.
I think that that's one thing that we've always done well is balance each other out for where I'm weak. I realize I'm weak and she's strong, and I really lean on her for that. And then vice versa, where she is a little weaker, she has identified her weakness and leans on me to be strong in that area. And then communication. Obviously, you're going to talk to, and there's a lot of husbands and wives that work together, but it's just not being afraid to ever have that conversation or to communicate openly and honestly. That's what's been a catalyst in us being a successful couple in the business world.
Yeah. So you guys, I want to skip ahead a little bit. Just a few years. So you and Becca met, you guys get married. She's working in interior, like, commercial space, right? And then COVID happens.
Yep.
Well, I love this.
So
because,
COVID happens.
Yeah. Did
Sorry,
COVID happen? No, it's the to you for you. COVID happens in our whole industry. Oh my God, this is happening. And for you, this happened for you because of what you're going to tell us right now. I just wanted to set that up. So what happened?
Yeah, so we'd been married for about, at that point, 4 years, and COVID hits, and we had always talked about working together. But immediately, as soon as it hits, her industry shuts down because she's doing commercial interiors, mostly in the medical field. Um, so she gets furloughed, and us as an exteriors company at that time, because we just had the exteriors business, we are in straight up panic mode, not knowing where the next job's going to come. And shortly after it starts, we ended up, we had been working on a multifamily project for about a year and a half trying to get it, and we landed it. And it was a $3.5 million townhouse project. So we just said, hey, whatever happens this year, we're going to be okay. Not fully knowing what was going to end up happening was that the industry was going to explode, and we were actually going to be the opposite of okay, because now we're going to have too much work. But that was a good problem to have at the time.
Yes.
So I remember I was sitting at home because we still had the office closed, and I was doing renderings, and I was so busy. And I was doing like I said, I was doing my own renderings. I was going out and selling jobs. I was trying to just trying to do everything. And she just said, hey, I don't have a lot going on. How about I try doing your renderings for you? So she did. And the first rendering of hers I presented, the homeowner loved it. So I came back home, was like, oh my God, you're a natural at this. You need to just come now. Like, we're about to start interviewing for designers. You need to just come work for us. And she said, not. I will never work for you. So she said, I will only come work there if I'm working with you. And I said, done. So June 1st, 2020 is when she officially onboarded, which was her birthday. And my dad will still say it's the best birthday present he ever gave her.
Oh, of course. But I did not realize she started on her birthday. I love that.
Yeah, she started on her birthday. And me being true to form, being the ultra competitive person, I did not want to give up designing. So the first two customers we met with, she designed their project. I secretly designed my own version of it.
Oh.
And then presented both of them and told the homeowners to pick which one they liked more. And much to her chagrin, they both picked hers. Because if there's one person that's more competitive than me, it is Becca.
Absolutely.
And that was the day that was like the last time I ever got to design a project. But it's only gotten better from there. So.
Yeah. How amazing to have a challenge come up and it brings her in. And now fast forward a couple of years, everything you're experiencing is you and her building it together. Following the path that your dad set originally for you guys, I think it's pretty cool.
Well, it's just amazing the growth that you've had since she came into the business, since you guys were like, we're doing this together. Like, she said, I'm not going to work for you, I'll work with you. And you were like, okay, yeah, let's do this together. The explosion of growth that you guys have had is really something that is rare to see in such a short period of time. I mean, you went from one company to three, your profitability has gone up. I mean, everything, it's really insane.
Well, I want to go back just for a second, because we started talking a little bit about your self-image, and you were a baseball player. You kind of got beat up and had an identity crisis, and then you stepped in, before the growth happened. And what I see today in your world is a reflection of you. So do you mind sharing? And I know you had that meditation you shared with me, if you're okay, just talking about like what paradigms did you have about self and how have you changed those to get the world and the business to show up the way it is for you today?
So the biggest paradigm I've always had was I've identified my entire life as a baseball player. And that was my identity. So I definitely had a self-identity crisis once I was done with baseball. And I definitely did a really good job at putting a mask over it and pretending like it didn't bother me. But it did. And Becca, she sees right through everything. So, once we moved in together, she saw right through all my bullshit. And she was just like, Kyle, you are not an athlete anymore. Like, you need to get past this. Because it was like a cycle. Every year during June, I would start getting down because it was right around the time when I got drafted. So seeing the draft happen brought back all these memories, and none of them were good. So it took me a really long time to to get past the idea that I needed to be a baseball player to be successful. And I mean, realistically, it wasn't until recently that I feel like I've actually gotten past it, where I've realized that I didn't actually live life to be a baseball player. I've lived life to be a good leader, and to lead a team. And I found a lot of passion and happiness since I've stepped away from selling now, in leading my team. And that's really helped out a lot for me, because leading is outside of work. It's leading your family. It's setting a good example for your kids. It's being a good member of the community. Leadership can stretch across all forms of life. So it's not just a single purpose thing.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. This is amazing. And because you were in charge of all your sales and marketing, right? And just, you've totally stepped away from that. Was that scary for you to be like, okay, I'm not going to be in the home anymore. I'm not going to be like side by side with these guys. Like, can my little baby birds fly? Can I allow them? Is that scary?
Was it scary? I think scary would be like the understatement of the century. So yeah, I mean, because over the past 3 years, I've personally done I did 3 million 3 years ago. I did 4 million 2 years ago, and 4.5 million in sales last year myself.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I was terrified to think of what would actually happen if I stepped away from selling. And of course, January of this year was the first year I was not selling and I was fully in leadership. And what happens? We have a bad January in sales.
Oh.
And I started having, I don't want to say an identity crisis, but I definitely had some imposter syndrome at that point, where I felt like maybe I'm not a good sales manager. I mean, the amount of talks I had with Becca about me not thinking I was good enough for that. I mean, it was like bi-weekly at minimum. We were talking about that. So what did I do at that time? I just talked about it on our call last week. I learned that in order to be a good leader, I needed to be an even better follower, and made myself vulnerable to some people I really respect, and got what I would consider to be life-changing information from some people who knew better than I did. And then we followed that up with a record-setting February in sales, and a record-setting March in sales, and a record-setting first quarter in sales. So we've doubled our Q1 of last year. So yeah, I've learned a lot of. It was a really good and hard lesson, though, to learn that you need to humble yourself sometimes, really, to get the information you need. Somebody who has taken things to such a high level, it's really hard to be humble sometimes.
Well, one of my favorite things too, and for listeners, I've worked with so many owners over the years, Kyle, that they get to that moment where they're ready to step out of any sort of position, whether it be sales, production. You step out, you have a bad January. The paradigm or the program is to hop back in and sell. And you had that thought, I'm sure.
Every day.
How did you manage that? Because I think for listeners too, if you're trying to grow your business, you're going to have to walk through what Kyle just walked through. Yep. You have to pass the torch to somebody else, and then you have to allow them to fail, and then guide them to succeed without you jumping in. And the subconscious program is to jump in. And you kind of touched on that, but I want you to hit that, because this is an important point for listeners, is because anything we're trying to do, at some point, we have to allow, trust, flow. Those are some of the affirmations I use in myself, to let go. But how did your mindset help you do that?
Timing, once again, timing is everything. So we were fresh off of the Stellaris retreat, which was when I was introduced to Brian Gottlieb. And then I went to the Hardy conference after, and I got a copy of Beyond the Hammer. Yep. And I mowed through that book in a week, and it spoke to me in some parts. And what I really started focusing on was the transfer of belief to my employees, because I realized that over the past couple of years, while my sales team has thrived, I've never done a good job at transferring a belief to them that they were doing a good job. All I ever did was play into their individualistic personalities, and just told them, I tried to just get the competitive edge out of them by telling them, like, you're doing great, but it'd be a lot better if you were beating me. you know, and I thought that worked for the most part. But how do you make that work when you're not selling anymore?
Exactly. I was going to say, because that is a very, very powerful part of leadership is leading by example, right? Setting that bar, saying, I can do this, you can too, let's go. But now it's like, now I'm not doing it. So like, how was your shift perceived by others? Like, how was that perceived by them? Like, Kyle's the one that's been leading the pack to showing us what to do, and now he's not doing that. Like, what did they think? Like, what did others think about this too?
I tried to explain to them like what my main focus was going to be, but it was hard to get buy-in at first. I would say it probably took until around February to where they started actually believing that I'm not here for myself anymore. I'm here for them. I'm here to do whatever they need to succeed. And I will do whatever in my power to make sure they are the absolute best people they can be every day. Whether it's sitting in on a follow-up with them in the showroom for 2 hours at 6 o'clock at night, I don't care. I want them all to be the most successful versions of themselves. And that is, for once in my life, I can say that is actually the 100% truth. Like I'm living life for other people now.
Oh.
And boy, does it feel great.
I love that. I love that.
That's amazing.
But the big thing for me that I was going to say was, you know, when I talk about never feeling good enough, well, I talked about that self-image that I had in the past. And the big change for me that I realized was, while I got drafted and it didn't work out and I felt like I gave my all, I started looking back and doing reflections on that. And I realized that maybe I didn't really try as hard as I thought I did. You know, I took it as far as my God-given talent would take me, but did I put in the extra work? No, not really. Did I really give it everything I had? Probably not. You know, I took it as far as my body would let me without pushing my body further. So that's when I started realizing, like, maybe my best is enough. And maybe I am suited for success, and maybe I am suited to lead. And that was a big thing for me, and that was something that I talked a lot about with Word. Word helped me out a lot with that.
Yeah, I love that.
I loved pairing you two together. And so I want to ask you this too, because you've shifted from, I was brought to this world to be a baseball player, to I was brought to this world to lead others. Being in not just Stellaris, the private small mastermind, but being in Inner Blueprint, in the owner's mastermind, surrounded by other leaders, how's that helped you?
Yeah, how has masterminding impacted you with other high-level leaders?
So it used to not, until once again this year I humbled myself to the people who do it better. So this year was the first year I started writing down affirmations, which I've already texted Pat Reddy off and said, thanks for that, Pat. I finally stopped being a dumbass and listened to you. You know, I started reaching out to people like DJ, who's done it and is looking to give back now. Tim Brown, who's done it, looking to give back now. And started not caring that I'm asking questions. I used to care so much about what people thought of me that I was afraid to ask the question. And now I don't care. We're all on the same team. We all want each other to do better. You know, like in the past, I would have never reached out to Brian Gottlieb.
Yeah.
But you know, that was a life-changing text that I sent. Just getting the opportunity to not only have the call with him, but then spend that Saturday with him and with Kat. And I mean, it changed the way we look at business now.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I think it takes a level of authenticity and vulnerability to be able to reach out or to raise your hand and not get triggered by these other people that are doing it, right? And going, actually, can you help me? You've done it. You're doing it. Can you just tell me what you did? Like, I'll do it now, because I had to humble myself, right? Like, I had to stop pretending I knew everything or that I had it all figured out.
Well, and I think, Kyle, from what I've seen too, and on your self-image, you know, you had to change from almost being a baseball player, not being enough to all these different things, to for you to ask for help for other people, took that shift inside. It took Kyle knowing he's powerful, knowing he's enough, and you asking a question or thinking somebody else has more knowledge than you do doesn't take anything away from who you are. In fact, if anything, as you've seen, it adds back to you. So Congratulations.
Well,
I love seeing your
and
inner blueprint come out.
crazy enough too, speaking of the baseball thing one last time, I was a serial low goal setter is what I would say. So when I actually think back to it, because my goal when I was younger was to get drafted to play professional baseball.
Not to play
So
professional baseball, just to get drafted?
nope,
Oh,
I only ever said my goal was to get drafted.
You said
So
that
I
earlier.
actually
You actually said that, and I was going to bring it up, and I was like, did he mean to say that, or was that a Freudian slip where you said, I lived my life for the day I got drafted? And I was like thinking in my head when you said that, well, he got that day. So that's why nothing else ever happened.
when you even shared that with Becca to impress her, because in your mind you'd hit your goal, and I don't know her thoughts, but she probably was like, big deal.
And
It's funny too, because statistically, and we deal with a lot with goal setting in our module 1, right? But Olympic athletes that set a goal to make the Olympics,
that's all they do.
they don't medal. And Olympic athletes that set their goal from day one to get a gold have a higher percent chance of medaling at all, right? They don't all hit gold. Everything doesn't always go the way, but it's like where you set in your North Star. And I love that learning for you, because now with the business, you get to raise the bar, right? You're not just going to make it, you're going to exceed it. And what does that look like for you? I love that. Well, one last thing, and just for time's sake, because we are getting closer to the end of the episode, it's just a paradigm that's common in home improvements, and it's in-home financing. And I know you've had so many wins, but you and I had talked for years about the fact that you didn't use in-home financing, and you would always tell me, Shawn, my customers don't need it. I sell to affluent areas, and we don't need it. What's happened since and we do have a partner we work with, Manny at Upgrade Finance, since you took that on and shifted it? Just share for listeners, because there might be somebody listening that still has that same paradigm.
It's like, we don't need financing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always thought that my customers didn't need financing. I said I sell to wealthy customers. Why would a wealthy customer need free money? And then you said one day when I was talking to you, Kyle, stop thinking about the people who need the money. Start thinking about how much more money they would spend if it was free money. Mm-hmm. So you said, your $60,000 sale, that could be a $100,000 sale because $40,000 of it's free money. And that, for some reason, really resonated with me. So I signed up with Upgrade. And part of for me too, was always finding the best partner.
Yeah.
Which Manny finally felt like somebody who not only was looking out for my company's best interest, but wanted us to keep excelling, do better, and then has reciprocated back to us, has always been there for us, which is really good. So our first year offering, so before we started offering financing, we did just over $6 million in sales, and that was in 2023. So last year, 2024, first year offering financing, we made a push in about April or May to really start pushing financing out there. We finished last year at 11.5 million in sales. So we grew by over $5 million.
Yeah, almost doubled.
About 75% of our business was financed.
There it is, right there.
So yeah, my first year, I think we processed over $6.5 million in revenue just through Upgrade.
Wow.
We carried a lot of that over until this year. So far this year, 80% of our sales have been financed. We are on track probably to do somewhere between 13 and 14 million in sales. That's probably pretty conservative.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's conservative.
Sales reps, so.
You guys are going to do more than that. I already know.
Well, and again, listeners, we talk about paradigms all the time. Kyle's paradigm was the consumer didn't need financing, and since he's changed that paradigm, he had a shift. 80% of his customers, they don't need it, but they like it. They want to use it. It expands. It makes it easy for them to buy, and it makes it easy for them to buy more. So anyway, just wanted to hit on that, because that's a huge paradigm we deal with a lot of business owners is, they finance like 10% of the work they do, and they're not seeing the path. And, I've seen it in lots of companies and suggested it. You took a shift in your thinking, got a really good partner, and anyone that needs a good partner, Manny is one of our contacts and a friend of ours, reach out to us. But congratulations, Kyle. I just can't wait to see this continue to expand and grow.
One other thing I will say about financing, because once again, while you may not think you need it, it shortened my sales cycle down to less than a week. So from first appointment to contract signed, we averaged about 6 days last year.
Oh my
and
God.
what I realized is that sales is about creating a path of least resistance for the homeowner. So the easier it is for the homeowner to move forward, the more likely that it'll move forward faster. So
Absolutely.
when you don't have to pay any money down, there's no money due at signing, it just creates one less roadblock for your sale and one less reason for them to push it off.
Yes. And you're dealing with bigger ticket sizes too. It works at all levels, but especially when you get to the bigger ticket sizes, you make the money available. It gives them the power to make that decision in a shorter amount of time.
Correct.
I love it. So
Wow.
what's next? We've talked about image. We've talked about paradigm shift. Love seeing your guys' winning. I can't wait. We will definitely have Becca on as a guest, but I can't wait, us to reconnect on the podcast here in the future to see where you've taken it from here. Because as you and I both know, it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning.
This is just the beginning.
So what's next for Erdmann? Well, hopefully Eating with the Erdmanns is hosting the Feuers soon.
Yes, that is happening.
Yes.
But other than that, I mean, listen, I think that as a company, I was very fortunate. My dad founded the business in 1982. He was able to build a super solid foundation for the business. We created a place that people knew of in our city. And because we've been located in the same area since 82.
Yeah.
So when you have such a solid foundation, it just made the growth easier. So I'm happy that he was able to do that for us. I'm happy he is still with us. He has just taken the role as our director of training and SOPs. So now
amazing.
he is onboarding all of our new reps because growth is coming so fast that, we need someone who is full-time training. So, and his whole goal is to try to create the next generation of carpenters in our area.
I love it.
And who better to do that than the original founder, right? Like, who's going to write those better than anyone? I mean, it's perfect. I love that.
And Shawn, I'm going to say his name. Kevin Erdmann started this business, and he's got Kyle and Becca coming in. And Kyle and I have talked a lot offline. I worked with my father, and it's not always easy. Father-son relationships can be challenging, especially when you've got one working towards retirement. He just wants to be respected. You've got a younger son coming in, just wanting to be respected. But I know through all your differences at the end of the day, Kyle, you've shared with me your love and gratitude for your dad, how much you've appreciated the opportunities that he's provided. And you're doing a lot with him too. And I know even though it might be challenging for him, he loves seeing this version of you show up. So congratulations to you and him on this path that you guys have been on.
Definitely. I mean, because I think
Well,
that's
thank
what we all want as parents, right? Like, you're a parent, Kyle. Like, you want any opportunity you provide for your child, you want them to run with it and make something of it and just like maximize to the fullest. I know that is my whole goal as a parent, is I want to provide opportunities for our daughters that they just capitalize on to their fullest potential. And so to see you guys do that is like, it makes my mom my mom heart happy, and I'm not even involved, but I'm like, this is so cool to see a child really take it and run with it, and just, it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's so impressive.
Well, again, our perspective and vantage point is different. I don't know for your dad, it is challenging. I've got lots of dads that I work with that are retiring, and letting go is hard. But to take the vantage point back and say, gosh, look at what my son is doing. Look what his beautiful wife is adding. And that's a cool thing. One last thing, I do want to do a little bit of a plug for us, because you mentioned dinner at the Erdmanns. And for listeners, Kaitlin and I will be at the Pro Remodeler Pinnacle event in Chicago in June.
Yep.
Brian Gottlieb will be there. He's speaking and running a workshop. We'll be there. If you've never been to the event, it's actually my first time, but I hear lots of good things about this event. So check your calendars. Go to the website. We've got a promo code we could even share with you, but we are going to be in Chicago. I know we'll be doing dinner with Kyle and Becca while we're there, but if you want an opportunity to see us in person or to meet amazing business owners, it will be a great event. And just throwing that out there at the end. So back to Kyle. Thank you for being a guest with us, man. I just want to give you my sincere thanks. You've leaned into our material to enter Blueprint.
Yes.
You fully implemented it. You and Becca both are living proof that when you change the way you think, you change the way you feel, you get better results. And again, thank you for being our friend. Thank you for being our guest. Can't wait to do the follow-up in maybe a year, maybe sooner, the way you guys are growing. Who knows?
I know. It's like, we opened another business.
Maybe next month. Who knows?
I mean, I'm going to work to try to get Becca on here. Maybe we can do one together.
Yes,
right.
That's the next goal. I want you and Becca together. That will be a great episode.
Yes. A couple of our favorite people. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Listeners, thanks for listening. If you like what we've shared today, all we ask is you share the message, implement what we talk about, hit the subscribe button, share this with somebody you love and care about, and as always, enjoy the ride. It's a good one. Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Shawn Feurer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride.